Hello, everyone. We're kicking off our webinar. My name is Sergio. I work for a Dynata marketing team, and I'm really excited to have you all here. We're just going to giving folks a couple of minutes for them to join, and we should be starting 103. Please, as you see the presentation, please add your questions to the QA. The session should take 45 minutes, around 30 minutes for presentation, and 15 to 20 minutes for QA. But please add any questions that you might have to the Q&A box. We'll be happy to tackle them at the time. So just giving everyone a couple of minutes for them to join. Okay. Thank you all for joining. I think most already joining us live and what about you. So let's kick off today's webinar. So I would like to thank you all for your time, for being here with us today. For those who didn't got my intro before, my name is Sergio. I work for Dynata marketing team, and our webinar are going to be taking around 45 minutes, and we will have some time dedicated to QA at the end. So please, as you go to the content, add your questions to our speakers so we can tackle them later. So I'm kicking off now and introducing our speakers. I'm going to be kicking off to Anne so she can introduce herself.
Thanks, Sergio. I appreciate that. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today along with John to talk about how attitudinal data can help you better achieve your marketing goals. As the slide says, my name is Anne Acker. I lead commercial partnerships at LiveRamp. So this means I get to work with companies like Dynata to help them bring their data to buyers in a manner that's efficient and at scale. As part of my job, I also lead our third-party data marketplace, which connects data buyers and sellers to high-quality, privacy-compliant data to power a myriad of advertising use cases, predominantly around activation and measurement. I've been at LiveRamp for just about 7 years now, which is hard to believe. I've been in ad tech for almost my entire career. I launched one of the first advertising networks in the late 90s, actually, to date myself. I've worked extensively at Blue Kai and at Oracle, and then again at LiveRamp for the last 7 years. And I'm really proud of our partnership with Dynata. We've been working together almost a decade now, since 2015. So thanks, John and team, for including us today.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. John Bulgren here. I run a piece of what we call the media business here at Dynata, which is a subset of a very large kind of market research consumer survey company. Part of that is dedicated to helping brands and agencies and other third parties measure impact of advertising performance. What we're here to talk about today is our programmatic audience activation capability, why it is different in the marketplace, and why our partnership with LiveRamp is a very critical component in making that all happen. I've been at Dynata for just about 3 years, spent my entire career in the industry as well, started on the media agency side, went through to some other kind of ad tech measurement companies, and happy to be here today. Thanks, Ann, for joining. And so we're going to get into this, but we just encourage you, any questions that come up, there's a QA component, please pop them in there. We're going to make sure that we keep this to 30 minutes as best as we can so that we can spend the last 15 making sure that you get your questions answered. So just keep that in mind all the way through. We're tracking it. We've got people moderating it, and we're very focused on that. So for those of you who don't know, and this is kind of the aerial view, Dynata, first and foremost, is an industry leader in people-based data. And what we mean by that, and a big distinction, is people-based data for us means the direct connection that we have with people, and in a survey environment, what they're willing to tell us about them. So hobbies, interests, opinions, and attitudes, which is going to be probably the word of the day, which is a way to kind of, as an alternative criteria, help you and your clients build activation audiences to programmatically target people, maybe in a different way than you've done in the past, right? And so we're going to get into that a little bit more, but I wanted to make sure we defined what we mean by attitudinal very quickly. It's not passive behavioral measurement. It's not what somebody watched on TV because we saw it through a log. It's not what somebody searched for because we saw it through, site-side analytics or anything like that. It is Dynata owns the ability to access millions and millions of consented panelists that are willing to tell us things about themselves that can serve as criteria for audience creation, at which point LiveRamp is our biggest partner in helping us bring those to scale and make them available to the marketers and the media buyers to actually access those targets in the advertising ecosystem. We work with just about everybody, usually direct, oftentimes very indirect. So I mentioned that the media component of the Dynata organization is a subset. Our biggest clients, for the most part, are market research agencies, consulting firms, et cetera, who may be using Dynata panel and Dynata products to help brands and help media agencies inadvertently learn things about who their existing clients are, potential clients are, lapsed clients are. So one way or another, we suggest we're in about 80% of the entire Fortune 500 in terms of Dynata's influence on helping brands and companies learn more about themselves or their clients.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny, John, you say we work with just about everybody. I would say something very similar for LiveRamp as well. So LiveRamp is, just to give a quick overview, the world's leading data collaboration platform. So we help companies across the ecosystem share and collaborate and use data across a myriad of different use cases, mainly focused on advertising. So for some examples, we work with brand marketers, CPG companies like Hershey's Chocolates, or maybe a healthcare company like Eli Lilly, and we work with their agencies. We think of these brands typically as being data buyers. They're looking to enhance their first-party data, what they might know about their customer or prospect, with additional third-party data signals. And we help them leverage that third-party data and activate it across the ecosystem. We also, the reason we're here today, we work with really premium data providers like Dynata, who need to get their data connected to buyers, brands, and agencies, and even platforms in a privacy safe and efficient manner. And then, as you can imagine, we have pipes that connect all of these different kinds of data, first and third party, to the ecosystem where it can be activated and used. So that could be to a DSP, that could be to a measurement partner like John was talking about. And that's also to really large and premium publishers like a Pinterest or a Disney or an NBCU. So what makes us a little bit different is We do all of this collaboration on a foundation of really strong identity. And so that's really the core of everything that we do. We operate what we think is the best identity graph in the industry. It's rooted in decades of what we think of as offline data, or think of it as physical, snail mail kind of data, where you've got name and postal, email, et cetera. And we connect all of those data assets with digital touch points as well. And the notion there is we want to give that holistic view of the user to anyone who needs to use our identity. We connect all of those different touch points across to what we call our synonymous identifier, or RAMP ID. And so RAMP ID and the ecosystem pipes that we've built are sort of the foundation of everything that we do to connect data and help customers collaborate. Last but not least, when I think about where we're really strong, it's identity, it's our ecosystem, but all of this is also baked on a really, really strong foundation of privacy. We bring a very rigorous emphasis to user consent and choice. Every customer we work with, every workflow, every partnership is vetted from a privacy and compliance perspective. And so we really pride ourselves on that privacy framework to make all of this collaboration really safe and effective. So that's LiveRamp at a very high level. If we think about why we're here with that background in mind, John and I are really here today to help you understand how attitudinal data, and specifically the data that Dynata brings, can help you as you plan and manage your marketing efforts. And then we'll also talk about how the Dynata plus LiveRamp partnership can help you better access this data and put it to work to achieve your objectives. And with that, John, I'll hand off to you.
Yep, perfect. Thanks, Ann. So why incorporating this type of data is relevant to campaign performance? So this is, for many of you, the most obvious quote in the world, but media fragmentation continues to be an issue for the advertising landscape. It's a benefit for the consumer because they can, pick and choose what they want to help entertain themselves, but it makes it more difficult for especially big brands to reach critical mass, the right critical mass that falls into the target that they're looking for. And, therefore the ability to gain people's attention to get them to digest the message that an advertiser is trying to send out makes it that much more difficult. And so, we've got a lot of partners that do a lot of studies like this, but audience targeting continues to be the biggest challenge for marketers. And so that's why we're here to talk about this today, because the uniqueness of what we are kind of bringing to the table here today is that we are acknowledging that there is a sea of data available to media buyers and advertisers and marketers that allow them to reach or attempt to reach the right target. A lot of that data is behavioral based, or database registration data, or census data, or this person did that because we saw it through a meter, or whatever the case may be. That holds up in a lot of use cases. But in some use cases, it might be better to define a target audience by just asking 1,000 people what they plan on doing next week, if they plan on buying a new house in the next 6 months, if they are an electric vehicle intender, if they plan on going on a diet or go on vacation or take a cruise or whatever the case may be. And that's the message that we're trying to deliver. What Dynata brings to the table is the ability to go out into field, do consumer survey research, and then that consumer survey research behind the scenes has enough personal information, consented, privacy compliant, which we'll talk about, that is matched up with the LiveRamp identity that Ann just mentioned, which allows us to scale those respondents to be a projectable, representative, composition of the available universe. In this case, let's just say it's the US or North America. That then allows, Carnival Cruise Lines to go out and reach all those people who tell us that they plan on taking a cruise in the next 6 months, or they're on the fence, or they're persuadable audiences, or whatever the case may be. So that's the big differentiator here. We're not trying to take away from all the other great signals and criteria out there. We're saying that this is an additive component that can help further qualify the right type of person to go out and reach with messaging. So how do you use it? There's really three primary kind of disciplines of use cases here. You can see in the three boxes that we can enable as Dynata through in-house modeling solutions that then gets connected to the LiveRamp identity. LiveRamp then uses the pipes that Ann mentioned to push those scaled audiences out to all the different endpoint destinations. You know, depending on who's on the call today, we'll call them a DSP. For simplicity, we'll call them a piece of software where a media buyer can access available media inventory and pair that up with an audience target criteria, which we're suggesting we have a good thing going here. So three things here. Connected data audiences, this is something that Dynata has been doing for a very long time. The ability to match our panelists up with client-specific CRM databases, you know, first-party data, third-party data, you know, not even survey-specific if you don't want to, but the compelling piece there is you could match up, you know, a piece of research that, you know, is conducted on 10,000 people, match that up against the CRM file, and help understand, you know, the why and the how, and match that up against things that are passively measurable. There's also ways to go out and retarget and score that CRM file, to go out and ask people questions about why they did what we saw that they did. So that's one thing, connecting your client's first-party data and then us collectively making that available to an advertiser through LiveRamp. Market research-based audiences is where we've seen the most volume in the last few years, which is Dynata wheelhouse doing segmentation or brand tracker studies for clients, and then a segmentation analysis spits out 14 different segments, and 6 of them are compelling. We can then take those 6 and we can scale those to be audiences to be made available via LiveRamp to the advertiser end user to go out and reach those people. And we have a case study or two that we're going to talk about that kind of further emphasizes that. And then syndicated audiences. When we say syndicated audiences, that is using the things that we already know about Dynata panelists that then get projected and scaled out and made available off the shelf today, yesterday, tomorrow, however you want to put it. You can log into your demand side platform or that piece of software where you can buy media through programmatically, and you can pull down things like EV intenders, IT decision makers, new home buyers, fitness enthusiasts. These are things that our panelists tell us on an ongoing basis throughout the relationship maintenance that we have with the Dynata panelists. We have about 1,200, just under 1,200 syndicated audiences that are scaled out through partners like LiveRamp, and those are available today. Use as you like, and you know, any questions, come to us, and if you have anything to put in the QA, we'd love to talk about it. But really just think about anything that somebody, it goes very deep, above ground pool, in ground pool, 1 dog, 2 dogs, it gets very extensive, just things that people tell us about them, education, hobbies, interests, household income, household composition, and stuff like that. These are the 3 different things that you can consider the products, if you will, that is Dynata audience activation working with LiveRamp. Okay, so we highlighted the 2 bottom ones for a reason. Actionability, privacy compliant, and customer focused, I would consider table stakes. Everybody has to be doing that to be in business, so we don't need to go crazy there. The 2 things I want to talk about is transparency and measurability. So transparency is kind of a very unique differentiator for us, in our opinion. We can provide a statistical output of the modeling scores in 3 different types of equations that allows an end user to understand how well lookalike modeling, which is the scaling of the seed audience to the projected audience, as an interim deliverable before you even use it, before you even use the audience. We can tell you, we ran this model, here's the infographic, this is a result. It scored a 0.89 area under curve, which means it's 4 times more likely to reach that type of target than random. And that's a very unique thing in this industry. So keep that in mind. And anybody who wants to learn more about that, just come find me. And then measurability. So, first and foremost, Dynata, especially the Dynata media team, is a advertising effectiveness measurement unit. And so we have the ability to in-house measure how these audiences perform for awareness and recall and intent type metrics. We then have partnerships in place with most of the big retail data companies so that we can help you understand the lower funnel impact, because that's often of most interest eventually. How did it help drive sales, et cetera? And then through the, and I'll push it over to Anne for a second, through the LiveRamp ecosystem, there's a lot of places that this data can then go sit so that there can be things like research on research and further kind of evolution of how you can learn.
Great. And then, so I'll talk a little bit about where LiveRamp comes in here. So we view our job in this partnership, our job is really to get Dynata data any place that Dynata or the data buyer needs it and where they want to use it. So again, as I talked about a little bit earlier, that's where we lean on our connected ecosystem with all the ad tech platforms and publishers to get data exactly where it needs to go. And then the other part of our job is to make sure, as data is traveling through our pipes, that we are using the best and most appropriate identifiers or identity space to maximize both for match rates, for reach, and for accuracy. So if the campaign is really focused on measurement, for example, we might optimize more for accuracy in that transaction. So the ways very specifically to leverage this are, this is a screenshot of our tool called Connect. So if you are a LiveRamp customer already, you can access our data marketplace through Connect. And as the slide shows, you can simply click that you want to buy data. You can search for Dynata, where, as John said, you'll see upwards of 1,200, syndicated pre-built segments based on what they know and what they see, very specifically. So this is a really easy way to access the Dynata data. You can also, if you prefer to access it in your media platform, say your DSP or a social platform where you're planning a campaign, you can also go there and search for Dynata data. And last but not least, if you're not quite sure which of these applies to you or how to do it, feel free to reach out to John and his team. And in partnership with our team, we can make sure, again, we'll get the data that you need to the right place. So that's our goal, and that's our job in this partnership.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple case studies here. So we've anonymized these so you can use your imagination intentionally. We don't want to be polarizing in any way, but so we have two different examples. You'll notice a similar theme. The first one was last Q4. So probably this time last year, a client came to us and wanted to run segmentation survey research to help them understand who their holiday buyers, this is physical retail for the most part, who their physical retail holiday buyers are likely to be. What are some common things about them, et cetera. So we ran that research for a few months. We then incorporated some of their shopper data to help bolster that. So again, going back to the theme where it's not necessarily a zero-sum game, the attitudinal data can be combined with other types of behavioral or database-driven data to further encourage performance. And that's what we did here. So they then ran their campaign against 4 different audiences throughout the Q4 holiday period. And they were able to link that up with their CRM data and see sales lift and conversion. And they were able to, because it was CRM data, they were able to also layer in the cost of ad spend and the efficiencies gained from less waste. And that was a really good story. So this does not really skew towards any given category. Like I said, there's a lot of good behavioral measures that can help predict things, but at least layering on the attitudinal piece or just relying on the attitudinal piece, we're starting to see significant performance because it doesn't omit all of the people that might not be behaving in a certain way just because that's what's measurable and that's what has been measurable in the past, right? So we can go out to the general universe, total population, we can control for the types of people that we recruit into a survey to make sure it's balanced. And what we can provide back is, on a demo basis, fully balanced, et cetera, based on what your target is that you think is, this is what people are doing. The next was a big CPG company that was releasing a new product. didn't really know how to go out to market because they have been kind of directing messaging at a certain type of buyer for 60 years. They launched a new, considered, progressive direct-to-consumer type audience, which means younger people. And they needed some help understanding what those younger people were doing, not only in terms of their buying habits, but given the category that we're talking about here being CPG, are they planning on moving? Are they planning on getting married? Are they planning on getting pets or having children? Things like that. Those types of things are really difficult to understand from passive measurable data. Those types of things are very easy to understand on a relative basis by simply going out and asking 10,000 people what they plan on doing with their lives in the next 5 or 10 years or 6 months. And so that was a really great story that we had here: campaign targeting, efficiency, et cetera, and similar results that you can see here. The difference here is that rather than relying on the CRM data to look at ROI or return on ad spend, we used one of our retail data partnerships, which we can all talk about offline specifically, but we partner with all the big third-party retail data companies, which allows us, especially for something like a CPG brand, to link the placements and segments that were used using the Dynata audience criteria with the back-end sales metrics for them to understand, the client to understand how those performed against sales versus other targeting methods that they deployed. All right, we're right on time. We've got one more slide about next steps, and then we're going into Q&A. So just to summarize, these are the things that we suggest, but please use your imagination. I hope what you've taken away from this, at least, is this is a very flexible solution. So we talk about the syndicated audiences, which are available to pull down, vending machine style tomorrow if you want to use it. So I saw in the Q&A, somebody asked if we can share the 1,200 audiences. We can. You can see here the categories: automotive, B2B, financial services, technology, attitudes towards different type of buying habits, et cetera. The list continues, who you bank with, et cetera. That's kind of the starting point for a lot of brands. That's maybe all you need. But I want you to take away from this a theme of flexibility between what we're able to do and what LiveRamp is able to then help us do beyond that. We can go out and really find you any audience that you're looking for, right? So Dynata, again, first and foremost, market research company. The biggest companies in the world hire Dynata, peers of mine, to go out and help them understand new things about their business, their consumers, their opportunities. We can take any of those things and scale those into addressable, marketable activation audiences. And that is a capability of ours from the research standpoint. We have the scaling capability through intellectual property, but then LiveRamp is our largest partner in pushing those out to the world and making them available to brands, marketers, and agencies to be able to go to market and target people more efficiently. And then again, kind of putting our money where our mouth is, we can measure all this, and we're very happy to. So we're not just kind of supplying you with a hope and a dream and then walking away. We're saying, do this, and then our wheelhouse actually is to be able to measure the impact that those audiences have, and we can prove out the validity of what we're saying here.
Hey, John, I'm just looking at the Q&A. There's a lot of really good questions around planning data strategy, merging different segments and data types to get smarter, and questions about reach. So I'd say those are kind of the general themes, but yep. We should probably switch over there.
Okay. So where should we begin? Okay, so I'll do this one for you first, Dan. Colin Ho says,
well, thank you, John. Thank you, Anne. Yeah, let me start here. Okay. Let me go to the first one. Okay, we have many. So just before we start, if we are not able to Q&A, we're going to be trying to send them answers to you later. The first one, I think this one is for you, John. How do I match my first-party data with attitudinal data? How do I connect those dots to make my campaign smarter?
Yeah, so the answer depends on who the question is coming from in terms of first-party data ownership. But let's just assume you're the brand directly, or wherever you're coming from, you own the first-party data. The Dynata panel respondents, which we're referring to as attitudes in this context, that's our first-party data. So we have consented, name, address, lots of different signals that allow us to match in whatever environment we mutually agree on that is capable of doing that. Could be LiveRamp, to bring those two things together. So think about it as simply as possible is, first-party data will have Jane Doe 123 Main Street, and a Dynata panelist will have Jane Doe 123 Main Street. That all gets encrypted, anonymized, and then there's a way to match those up for various use cases.
Next one, I think that's for you again, John. What's the sample size that's required for each segment to do a lookalike modeling scale to a LiveRamp audience?
It's a very good question. It's a differentiator that is a little bit too in the weeds for us to have gotten into in the presentation, but the answer is 300. So we need n equals 300 behind any survey respondent cell on PII sample for us to do lookalike modeling. And again, when I talked about the transparency element, we then provide you with a score of how the lookalike modeling performed. So peace of mind exists in that deliverable before you go out to market.
Can I suggest we go? I think.
Thanks, John.
Question 4 is a really good one.
Next question. Curious to know this impacts the ad effectiveness. Oh, sure.
Oh, I was just going to say.
Oh, sure.
Question for the retail case study. How did they incorporate the shopper data? I think that's a great question.
Okay, we can tackle this.
How do we incorporate the shopper data? Yeah. So I'll keep it as simple as possible. Whoever asked the question, think about the retail shopping data company of choice. Dynata, again, millions of consented PII panelists. We have matches in place with all of those companies. So what that allows us to do is to, when we conduct any kind of survey type work, we can then look backwards and we can attribute that to the same person at an ID level in that retail data set. And we can look how things change from a purchase standpoint over the course of time relative to ad exposures or whatever else we're talking about. On the other end, because we have that match, we can also go backwards. So we can look at that data on the retail front and look at people who have purchased certain things and go out into field and ask them questions around why they did. Or if we look at that they switched from one brand to the other, we can conduct research backwards to ask them, what persuaded them to change their, affinity from one brand to another. All right. Let's see what else we got here.
Great.
This one's for Anne.
We have more time for a couple of questions. If you're not a LiveRamp
customer, can the scaling be done on a case-by-case basis?
Yes, it can. I think are you interpreting that as scaling through from the survey or scaling like just through the third-party audience?
Yeah, I think the answer there is they could scale through us to you, right?
Yeah, yes, correct.
All right. So, okay, Adam Griffith. So can we ask the syndicated panel questions that are hard to target with digital signals, like attitudes about patriotism, voting intent, activism, serving your community, and match to lookalike modeling for campaign targeting? The answer is yes. We have a pretty large, to answer your question specifically, political category that sits within our data. You can ask custom questions to our panel and we can scale and make available regardless of the, as long as it's appropriate, regardless of the aspect. So yes. And again, this goes back to flexibility. So, political or voting intents to us is no different than what color is your car, or what's your favorite sport, or where'd you go to college. It's truly anything under the sun that you can learn by asking a set of people a series of questions to narrow down what that type of person looks like. Okay. G. Ayala, media consumption like social media, et cetera. Yes. So when we're talking about targeting and the ability to make these audiences scaled and available to reach people on different media types, we're talking about anything that has a digital signal that LiveRamp can connect to. And again, one thing a distinction to make is the whole concept of audience activation and programmatic media targeting is reaching the right person instead of targeting media types or media publishers or platforms in hopes of reaching the right people that might go there. Can you share the list of the existing 1,200 audiences? Jessica Benoit, yes, we can. Another one from G, is your panel robust enough to reach Hispanics, non-English speakers for the US? Yes, it all comes down to scale. So the answer is yes. You could come to us and we could kind of scope out how much would be required to do that. And again, the panel is ours. So we have the ability to go into our panel, not randomized, but we can go out. We have all those attributes on our panelists. So if you ask us to go out and survey certain types of people, whatever that may be, we can kind of in an efficient way, we call it routing, but we can go out and reach that type of person so that we don't waste your money getting a bunch of people who don't fall into the category.
Sean, I can tackle that new question, which is, what is the source of respondent level data within LiveRamp? I think that question is what's the source of the LiveRamp? I'm taking it as what's the source of the LiveRamp identity graph, and that's actually rooted in our former partnership and ownership with Axiom and their graph called Abilitech, which is been in existence for about 4 or 5 decades, and it's a basis graph around literally offline physical mailing addresses. And so that's where our offline PII data comes from. And then we also power a digital match network for online signals. And we map both of those back to a ramp ID, which is a single view of one person. And so that's how we're combining both the offline and online data together to understand that full picture of the user.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then we have Nick Watson. What's the minimum survey base size needed to scale into LiveRamp? Again, that's 300 at minimum, 300 survey respondents that Dynata then conducts lookalike modeling out and pushes those out to LiveRamp. And then LiveRamp is the kind of the broker out to the industry that pushes everything and makes them available in all the end platforms. 15, Nick, can this work outside of the US? The answer is yes. There's an asterisk only in that the solution is a little different. So not to be misleading, but the answer is yes. We do it through different third parties. We don't have an in-house scaling solution, but don't be discouraged. We have a solution. It's just different than what we talked about here today. So, come to us separately and we can have that discussion. What is the rotation of your panel? Are they required to stay specific time that they can exit anytime? They can exit every time. General practice for us is to only look at what we call 90-day actives. So people who have been in our panel for 90 days, no more, no less. They can churn out whenever they want, but we need to make sure that we're able to understand who that panelist is over a certain period of time. To be confident that what we're putting out to the marketplace is dependable. All right. I think we're ready to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Anne, for participating in this with me and us. And please let the questions come. There's some contact information here. We'll share this stuff, and we look forward to hearing from everybody. And thank you again. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Bye.